Hi everybody and welcome back to my modeling channel. So today we're gonna build a Messerschmitt BF-109 scale 172 from Tamya. So let's open the kit and see what we have inside. So I'm gonna initially start this kit. So I will remove, as I was keeping some of my, as you might see, some of my former video. I kept the instruction sheet as I want to do some other decal for that 109. But let's review what we have inside. It's basically one single sprue where we have basically everything. We have the wings and I have to say that all the structure line and the panel lines are in very fine engravement. It's a very nice little kit, very good quality, I have to say. We have also, of course, all the details for the cockpit itself, the tail wheel. We have all the little parts, different type of nose cone for that propeller and that version, and basically everything is there. Nothing much is missing. So we'll have to do. You have, of course, the cockpit. You have the seat belt, the seats. So you can do some nice little details. It's not, of course, as detailed as the last kit I made from Eduard. Seems to be still very decent. Now we're going to move on to the cockpit part. You have the collimator, and basically the cockpit is in two parts, so we're going to keep it with the cockpit closed. Now we're going to move on to the decal sheet. The decal sheet is made by Tamya, but I think they are printed by Italy. So it's pretty good. Nothing much to discuss about. I mean, it's a simple 109 with simple marking. They still provide a Svastika for people who wants to do an historical model, and that's pretty nice. And now let's have a look on the instruction sheet. So you start initially with your wings, move on to the cockpit, and then the general aircraft assembly. You have the options of making a few of those aircrafts. Basically, you have a few different versions. So you have one version who are in France in September, the other one autumn 1940, the Jagdstaffel 54, and the other one is the Jagdstaffel 77, and the first one is the Commander Adolf Galland. Yes, but actually I think there is lots of things to talk about, as this is not really the colors we have. I have the original colors from Eduard, which I'm going to use for that kit, and I will do it on the correct ones. So enough of talking, and let's start building. So we're going to start this model by preparing our wings. So initially we're going to just separate the three parts from the sprue, and then of course there will be a little bit of cleanup, and then we're gonna glue them all together. So far nothing too difficult, and then we are going to move on to the cockpit. So we will then basically cut all the parts for the cockpit and adjust them, and then get them ready. So then we'll initially glue the seat, then we're gonna put the instrument panel together, and for this I kept for later on some decals from some previous models, and then we're gonna basically assemble everything together. There will be also something for the engine covers, but the lower part of the engine covers needs to be made in three parts, and then we're gonna glue these all together. Then it's time to move on to the paint booth, and I will use a light gray color for the interior, for the cockpit and the interior of the aircraft, and of course for the wheel well. Those I'm using the straight paint Tamya straight out of the box for that part. Then, as I was mentioning, I will just add the instrument panel coming from another kit, some decals coming from another kit. Then I'll add a little bit of a solution, and then of course I will let it set, and then all the instrument will be nicely put on the aircraft. So while this is drying, we're going to move on to the fuselage as well, and we're going to start to basically do some details of that aircraft. So I'm going to use some matte black I'm gonna basically paint some panel lines and some other instrument panels, and and I will do this for both sides. Once finished, I'm gonna dry brush and do a little bit of weathering on the cockpit and on the seats as well, of course. And the dry brush technique basically consists of putting some paint on the paintbrush and then removing all the extra paint basically with a cloth, and then just get what's left. So after that, I will use some flat lead wire, and I will basically use super glue, and then I will put them and try to replicate basically the aircraft, the seat belt. So I will fix them, and then of course later on we will paint them as well. And so I have to put the shoulder harness together, and as they are coming in only one part, and then there is a little bit of fiddling and adjustment. Then we're gonna keep doing our dry brushing for the inside of the cockpit as well, the parts on the sidewall on the fuselage, and but nothing too difficult to mention. Then we're gonna paint, and I will use the deck tan color for the seat belt and the harness. I will also do some other panels, and then we're gonna revert back, try to replicate some switches with a white color as well, and that's for both sides of the fuselage. And then we're gonna use some dark wash, as that's gonna get that will basically show all the panel lines and show a little bit of dirt and a little bit of weathering, give more realistic effect to that model. Then we're gonna add the stick and the pilot stick, and then there will be also a little bit of painting on the grip. For this we're gonna use a matte black color, and then we're gonna leave it to dry, and then we're gonna add as well the parts to where we're gonna put our propeller on the aircraft. So the Tamya has a little bit different things, and you have that receptacle, and you have a little bit of rubber, and that will allow basically the propeller to sit inside and spin freely. So a nice thing. Of course, then we're gonna glue our fuselage together, and then we're gonna start adding some more parts, some air intake as well, and while this is drying, then of course I will add as well later on our wings, and now we're gonna fix the wings basically to on our aircraft. There will be a little bit of fiddling as well later on. We're gonna close all the gaps. The upper engine cover had some damage basically when I cut them out, so I had to add a little bit of a putty on top of that on the sides to correct the damage, and then we're gonna close all the gaps using some Tamya putty. The upper fuselage, the lower part of course, and of course the junction between the wings and the fuselage. Once everything was dry, it's time to start our sanding. So basically we're gonna start. I'm gonna use a 600 grit sandpaper, and I'm gonna remove all the extra putty on that aircraft and all the parts of the model. So I'll start with the lower part of the fuselage and the engines, and we're gonna move on toward all the aircraft and remove slowly but surely all the extra putty. We will now rescribe basically the panel lines. Some were filled up with some putty, so we have to remove all the extra and try to get basically those panel lines back. So for these, initially I use a razor blade saw, and then a rescribing tool to remove all the extra parts, and then I have the perfect result. I mean the result that I'm looking for. So after that, of course, we're gonna try to remove as well a little bit of extra who are still fitted in the panel lines around the wings. and then it's time to move on to our paint job. So initially I will paint all the yellow parts, and basically the nose of that aircraft is yellow. So I'm gonna use standard canary or lemon yellow, and then I'm gonna put all the engine covers as well, and lower, upper, and the engine itself with that color. Then of course I will let it set for quite a while, and then we'll be able to move on to the other part of the build. So we'll now move to the tail. So I'm gonna remove the horizontal stabilizer, prepare them, sand them down, and then we're gonna be able to mount them on the tail. So initially there's just a little bit of a glue on the parts, and then you also have the mount coming up, and those will require a little bit of a fiddling and adjustment, but as you can see, nothing too difficult to handle. So after fitting the cockpit, we're gonna move, and the mask, we're gonna move on to the main part, which is the painting part of that aircraft. So we're gonna paint the upper fuselage, the top of the stabilizer, of course, and the wings. And then from there, once the painting will be dried, we will move to the rest. We'll add some masking tapes, and then we'll do the different colors. Of course, there is a darker, there is a dark green, and then there is a lighter one, and then there are some grays and different tones, but I'll let you check with your provider or the instruction sheet to get the real color the color you really need. So of course we're gonna paint all of these, and while this will be drying, then we're gonna move on to the cone and the propeller using a matte black color, and after that, of course, adding more parts and more mask. Then we're gonna paint the underbelly and the lower part of the fuselage using the same color. It's a very light blue color. I'm using it straight out of the box from Tamya. If you need some reference, just let me know in the comment box below, and I'll reply to you as soon as I can. And so we will finish the underbelly and of course the gear doors for the main gear. And then I use, as you can see, the camouflage setting, because I needed to get the proper scheme. So we're gonna use that, and that's the airbrush. And then we're gonna be able to get that camouflage, that special camouflage for Adolf Galland aircraft. So a little bit of fiddling, of course, quite interesting to do. As I haven't done that before, it's still under practice, but the results were quite satisfactory, I have to say. Then of course now it's time for the decaling process, and I've been using those decals from one of my former kits, the Eduard Trophy Pack, as I wanted to have that Adolf Galland aircraft, who was one of the Ace and the youngest general in the Luftwaffe. So I wanted to have one of these aircraft. So we're gonna finish that. I have to say that those decals are very easy to use, very soft, and very easy to handle, so nothing too difficult basically to do, and really enjoyable to work with. So while that side will be drying, we're gonna move on to the other parts. So I'm gonna still work on the undercarriage. We will paint the struts, the guns as well, and of course I will have to move on to the other guns on the upper engine cover. We'll be able to paint that, and then we're going to move on to our tires. Of course, there will be a little bit more, and then we're going to come back to our decaling process. We will now move to painting basically the exhaust of that BF-109. For these I use some pigment and some metallic color until I get the proper rust effect. After that, of course, we're going to come back to our decaling process. We're going to basically put all the decals on the upper surface of that BF-109. So after finishing those decals, we will start moving on to another part. We're gonna start basically preparing and mounting the engine covers, lower and upper surface. And I have to say that that part, I have to say that I was quite impressed, because the fitting did not require any glue, and it really fits and clip into the model, and that was just fantastic. I was very happy to see that. Then we're gonna add our undercarriage. So initially we're just gonna put the gear, and then we're gonna add the gear doors attached to the landing gear, and then we're gonna add our wheels. We will then move to the propeller, and the propeller is in three parts. You have the propeller itself and the cone, and the aft part is black and the front is yellow, so that required. And then I'll have to push that in that plastic rod, and then the propeller can move freely. We'll then paint basically the tail wheel, the tire on the tail wheel, and nothing too difficult. And then we're gonna start applying the decal on the right side of the model. After finishing this, I decided to put a clear coat of varnish on the overall of the aircraft, and this because I will do some weathering effect on the aircraft, and I have to say that that will protect it. So for the weathering, I'm using some pastel, a very dark gray or some black color. I add a little bit of water, and I normally add as well a drop of hand soap, and that helps to have everything going together. So I need to get really dark color to be able to get all the structure lines and the structure panel going out. And so I'm going to paint the all over aircraft. This is a very forgiving technique, because if you're not happy, you just go and wash the whole aircraft instead of other methods that I've been seeing in the past. So what you will need when your overall is basically dry, you use initially a wet cloth or a cotton bud that I've been using, and then you have a dry cloth, and you try to use it and remove all the extra, still using the stream of the airflow, basically the airflow stream, and then you're going to be able to get really nice weathering effect on those BF-109 or all the other aircraft you want to make. After removing all the extra wash, I'm going to use some dry brush technique once again, just to give a little more, add some more realistic effects to the aircraft, having the cheap paint mainly where the pilot is going to climb on the aircraft, on the leading edge and other places. And then I'm going to use also some other technique. I'm going to add also some more wash coming from the Tamya wash, the dark wash, to replicate engine stain and oil and then some of the leaks. And then I'm using my makeup tools bag, especially the dark color, and that's to replicate the gunpowder around the engines and the gunpowder, sorry, around the guns, and up and below some oil stand as well. And after finishing this is really the last part of that model. And you can now have the final result of that BF-109 from Adolf Galland, young ace and youngest general in the Luftwaffe. His signed picture is on the background as well. So I hope you enjoyed that kit review and that build with me. If you did so, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you soon for another kit review and build video. Thank you for watching.